Alright, my delicious people. So you are here to learn about damage secondaries, and I will be able to show you that very easily. The first things first, you might be tempted to use Encumber, because Encumber actually does the most damage, but you gotta take into consideration something extremely important. You have to dump half the magazine into your enemy before it reaches the max. So that means it technically is not worth it. It does go to 1,680, but as you can see, it's kinda sorta a bit of a build-up. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna show you an actually great alternative to this if you were to actually go for single target. And specifically, you want to go with single target or an AoE weapon that fires really quickly or hits multiple times. So you want to make sure that you build for the strengths of the weapon. So we go over here and we build for this. And I will also explain why the mods are the way they are right afterwards. So let's do this. First off, for future reference, let's dump a clip into them. Around 2/3 of the clip in the magazine, I ended up bringing him down to about that much health. Anyway, so let's do this. Let's go and let's blast all of these people to build up our stats, essentially. Now we're going to show you exactly why you want to build up stacks on lower enemies before you hit the big guy. Essentially, because of the fact that the status is still applicable, you want to actually make sure that you utilize the heat's mechanic of the first heat applied is the one that it builds off of, essentially. So, what you want to do is essentially build off of that. But, what is that mechanic that I described earlier? Essentially, let's do this. As you saw, I maxed out my heats in a single magazine. So let's do something very interesting. Let's go full status. Just absolute full status. And you're about to see exactly how that goes. Let's look up there. And entire magazine, and I did not reach max. This has happened every single time that I have tested this, by the way. So that means you do, in fact, want to make sure you have higher heat than every single other status in your thing. 100% status is not worth it. So, what do you say about multiple hits? Well, let me show you this, and I will show you the build. There we go. As you can see, I hit lots of times with this weapon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spawn more goons. Actually, I think I need to kill them first. Okay, I'm going to spawn more goons. And we're going to check something. Do I have Mr. Bane? No, I do not. And I think that's just fine. Unless we do this. Okay. The reason why you would want to use a Bane specifically is due to the fact that you might want to be one of those people who have a damaged weapon for one and a damaged weapon for the other. Essentially, if you want to take out an acolyte, you're gonna want to use something else, like a primary or a melee. But a regular enemy will take everything and just die. So that's great. As you saw, it also built up the heat extremely quickly. Now let's move on to a very advanced version of this. So as you can see, I literally do not have a single status mod on here, besides Sure Shot. In fact, would you like to see something very interesting? I might be able to show you that. Nah, Looks like I can't fit anything. So, let's go and let's bring out some enemies. Essentially, the fact that the compressor explodes 3 times actually means it can do this. It can hit the enemy 40 times with this current setup, with a single shot. So that means I literally just managed to fill the entire heat bar with that. And then we go and you hit some enemies. I'm reloading each time and I didn't run out of anything. Hit this guy and he is getting absolutely dominated. So that's very much of an advanced version of multiple hits is extremely important to heat. If you can find something that hits a lot more often, then it would be very great. Now let's move on to an alternative, which is essentially Merciless. What you want to use Merciless for is not to just have the damage, but you also want to use the utility. The utility is this. Even though it is half a Hornet Strike less damage, you will run into a situation where, as you're firing, you may fire at an enemy that's a little bit too strong. But you will have the ability to keep your stacks as long as you're hitting the enemy. The reason why this is important is that if you have a big giant hit weapon, you have a situation where you might not have enough status and enough hits at the same time to utilize heat. Alright, so let's go over a few notes. For one, if you want to use flare, you have to make sure the status is high enough. Either high fire rate or just a big enough amount of hits with enough status in order to activate said mod or arcane. Now, if you want to use Merciless, you have to make sure you have a big enough attack to be able to wipe all enemies in the area. And basically you want to have a crit weapon for Merciless. When it comes to alternatives, unfortunately, the alternatives are not exactly the best idea, due to the fact that they are not as good as these two mods. Another thing is this. Play the way you want to play. Does that make any sense? Essentially, if someone tells you you're not playing the right way, just block and ignore. Remember to keep all builds as baselines for your build and try to learn why things are the way they are. Because if you don't learn why things are the way you are, you're not learning anything. So, make sure your builds are set to your liking, as well as being able to utilize things you have learned from other people. And remember to have lots and lots of nightmares, because I would like to visit you often. Of course I'm in your nightmares. If you're watching my content, you're into it, and I hope it was entertaining. If you want to see general Warframe content, click on the box on the right. If you want to see some builds, tips, and guides, click on the box on the left. If you want to go shopping for your own content, then click on my profile. And I will see you in the next one. Good night.